Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And good evening and welcome to the Reaver of Common Sense, making sense out of the senseless right here on SHR Media, Conservative media done right. I'm your host, Jersey Joe, and tonight the masks aren't just slipping, they're being ripped off by the very people who put them on. Let's see, where do we want to start? Well, let's start with tonight's show. Is one of those nights where the headlines show just how interconnected the world has become. In the last 24 hours, we've seen 20 nation hammered drop in the Persian Gulf, a total breakdown of the asylum narrative at our own border, and a desperate political class in Virginia trying to put our Second Amendment rights on the chopping block. Shiny little things in the corner of my eyes caught me off guard. The front line of today's conflict isn't limited to a distant battlefield anymore. It stretches from the energy fields of Iran all the way into our local voting booths and even in the psychiatric office of our own members of Congress. So buckle up, because tonight we're connecting the dots between a ghost ship in Tehran, a $19,000 magic mushroom trip in New York, and a Washington power structure that is absolutely terrified because common sense is finally back in the driver's seat. And if you want to support the show directly, well, you can become a YouTube member by hitting the join button below the stream or drop a super chat during the live broadcast. Your support helps keep the lights on here at SHR Media and keeps the microphones live. You don't forget to check out. And don't forget. Whew, everything's starting one of those nights. I'm telling you. And don't forget to check out the SHR Media merch at the shrmedia.com, where you can get mugs like this. Because sometimes the best way to spread common sense is to wear it. Oh, everything's just off at the beginning of the show. But let's get into the first segment. Actually, before we get into the segments, there was some stuff I found real quick that I wanted to go over. It is official. Markwayne Mullin has been confirmed as the President Trump's DHS secretary in a 54-45 vote. Democrats who crossed over: John Fetterman of Pennsylvania and Martin Heinrich of New Mexico. Rand Paul, of course, voted with the Democrats. Yes, it's the Reaver shirt, not the Phillies. You leave the Phillies alone. I got to switch screens. I can't be, but listen, it's nothing I want to be mean about, but I try not to pay attention to the chat anymore. As Friday's show, or excuse me, Saturday night show, I can't deal with these people. They come in, they're not trying to have conversations. They come in just to disrupt and try to annoy people. And it's, to me, I treat it, when you go into someone's YouTube, it's like going into someone's house. You're a guest, and you should act accordingly. You want to disagree, that's fine. You want to have discord, that's fine. But just to go in and be disruptive and try to start shit, that is disrespectful. And, well, the mods have been instructed that certain key phrases will get you tossed immediately. I need people to be respectful and be respectful of the mods. That's all I ask. But Markwayne Mullin has now been confirmed as the next DHS secretary. And the other thing that came up, damn blockers. Ad blockers are getting away. The Supreme Court may be poised to strike down acceptance of mail-in ballots. That's looking pretty good. I think I do have that story spun up for tonight. So we'll see. But yes, let's get on with the actual show. All right. If you want to know how bad the rot has become for the establishment, you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at CNN. Their data guru Harry just dropped a statistical tactical nuke on the Democratic Party congressional wing. And the numbers were so disastrous, they left the entire studio in a stunned, uncomfortable silence. Harry didn't mince words. He told the world that in the minds of the American public, the favorability of Democrats in Congress is officially lower than the Dead Sea. When the network that usually acts as the PR firm for the DC elite admits the brand is underwater, you know the ship isn't just leaking, it's on the ocean floor. Here, don't take my word for it either. Hang on. Let's spin up the video. Camera's blocking it. All right. See, I like playing this because, number one, it's CNN. Number two, you cannot blame me or say it's not true because it is their mouth, not mine.
How are voters feeling about Democrats right now?
Yeah, I mean, Democrats in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
Now, when you have Democrats come at you about Trump and his polling numbers, remind them that the Democrat numbers are worse, way worse, ungodly worse than his. Here, let's play this again.
How are voters feeling about Democrats right now?
Yeah, I mean, Democrats in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
The common sense takeaway here is that you cannot spend years telling the American people that the border is secure while they see the chaos with their own eyes. You can't prioritize magic mushrooms therapy for elites or $1.4 trillion butterfly bridge while the average family is drowning in inflation. The public has finally looked at the reality of America last, and they are officially checking out. This isn't just a bad polling cycle. It is a total systematic rejection of a political class that has become fundamentally detached from the people it claims to represent. What was the most telling wasn't just the data. It was the reaction in the room. You could see the anchors trying to process a reality they spent months trying to ignore. And a side note, this isn't the first time these numbers have come out. This isn't like it's new. Their numbers have been nosediving month after month after month. It has not got better. They've lost massive numbers on the voter rolls while Republicans are adding to the voter rolls. They aren't pulling in the money for elections and donations and all that. Republicans are pulling in millions of dollars. I know the liberals would, well, yeah, they'll make every fucking excuse except for the truth. Right now, the only popularity the Democrats have is that small, fringe, left-wing, radical group that's such a minority in this country, but they speak the loudest, and the mainstream media gives them the platform. They're not the majority in this country. The majority in this country are tired of this bullshit. They're tired of the way government's being run. And that goes for how some of the Republicans are acting. People are tired of it, and I don't know what the answer is right now because I don't see any coming together on a common cause at all. I've heard some people say, well, if God forbid we had another 9/11, the country would come back together. No, I don't think that. I think the Democrats right now that are in office would root for the enemy that attacked us. I honestly think they would. From what I've seen of their actions of late, they root for terrorists, they root for narco-terrorists, they root for cartels, they root for rapists, they root for wife beaters. You know, anything that is against Trump, they root for. And they don't care. And I'm tired of it. But this bombshell confirms exactly what we've been talking about all show. Whether it's the military wins in the Strait or the common sense pushback from guys like Fetterman, the tide has turned. The American voter is done with the gaslighting and the curated narrative. They want results. They want security. They want their country back. If CNN is admitting the Democrats are at the bottom of the sea, hide the math anymore. And I've talked about the polls, and I've talked about it. I know you see polls that are put out to you. The problem is those aren't the actual polls. And the hysteria that we see coming out of the Democrat Party, already screaming that Trump's trying to cheat the midterms, they're coming out with excuses of why they're going to lose in the midterms. Their polling is showing they're not doing as good as they're appearing to be. You can cry blue wave all you want. If the Democrats win, you know what? I'll dust myself off. I'll pick myself up and then get ready for what? 2028. Just like after 2020, 2024, yeah, it just goes on and on. I'm not going to freak. We've lost elections before. It'll happen again. But I don't think it's coming in 2026. So you could talk blue wave all you want. Disenfranchise your own voters. We learned that as Republicans. When we screamed red wave one time so loud, then nobody showed up at the polls. Because everybody's like, well, why should I go and vote? You said it's a lock. It's a red wave. You don't need me. So keep going with the blue wave. Come into chat rooms like this. Tell people. Because what you're also doing is you're riling up the Republican base to make sure that they go out and vote. That's what you're doing. So go ahead and say it. Tell me I'm going to lose. Go ahead. That just emboldens me more to speak more, to get people out there to vote. We heard about how the blue wave was coming with the 2024 election. How Kamala Harris was going to win. It was going to be a landslide. They're going to take back the Senate. They're going to take back the House. How'd that work out for you? So you go ahead and you go on with that. I'm going to tell the Reaver fan base, the SHR family, to get out there in November and vote. Vote like your life depends on it, like your freedom depends on it. Get out there and vote, because if the Democrats get back control, all we're going to see is them throw impeachment after impeachment after impeachment after impeachment. Nothing will get done. They will do nothing but try to obstruct Trump, as they've done since he got back in office and his first term. That's all they will do. You will not see anything. This country will grind to a halt. They will empower our enemies. They will empower Iran. They will empower Russia, China, North Korea. They will empower them to fight against us. Because Democrats do everything they can against the American values. So if you don't want that to happen, and you don't want more of what the next story is coming, make sure you get out and vote, people. I recommend voting red this November. And we're going to the next segment with a massive red alert from the Commonwealth of Virginia. If you thought the radical left was going to take a breather after the recent shellacking they took at the ballot box, think again. Virginia Democrats are currently plotting what can only be described as an insane legislative blitz to strip law-abiding citizens of their Second Amendment right. We are talking about sweeping bans on commonly owned firearms, magazines, and even the cosmetic features that the genius in Richmond have decided make a gun scary. It is a total declaration of war on the self-defensive rights of every Virginian. And it's a blueprint for what they want to do to the rest of the country. The common sense breakdown of this is as clear as it gets. These politicians aren't interested in stopping criminals. They never have been. You never hear them talk about that it was the criminal that did it. What you hear is that the gun did it. You never hear about the lifelong criminal. The rap sheet longer than my leg. You never hear the Democrats talk about that. They talk about how to remove guns from law-abiding hands. And while they're busy passing soft-on-crime policies that let violent offenders walk back onto the street, and we've seen time and time again what exactly happens, and the name escapes me. There was, North Carolina, the Ukraine woman sitting on the train, and for no reason at all, a guy stabbed her in the neck. A violent criminal, a person with an extensive past that was given a pass by the courts because Democrats put soft on crime policies in that let violent offenders like that walk away. And back onto our streets. They are simultaneously trying to make it a felony for a single mother to own the tools she needs to protect her home. It is a total inversion of justice. They have decided that the problem isn't the person pulling the trigger in the dark alley. The problem is the law-abiding citizen who wants to exercise their constitutional right to be their own first responder. They love screaming about the Constitution, but never when it's about the Second Amendment. They love to walk all over your Second Amendment right. And think about the sheer arrogance of these bans. They want to tell you which grips, which stocks, and which magazines are acceptable based on a political agenda, not on ballistics or reality. Most of these legislators couldn't tell the difference between a bolt action and a semi-auto if their life depended on it. Yet they're drafting 1,000-page bills to tell you how to defend your family. It is a performative safety at its most dangerous, passing laws that only the good guys will follow, while the bad guys laugh at the new gun-free zone sign. Now let's get something straight, and I've said it God knows how many times, and I'll keep saying. Gun-free zones are a smorgasbord for criminals who want to go out and commit acts of heinous crimes. By disarming the American people, you are creating one thing, not safety. You are creating victims. You are creating an easy target for these criminals. Why do you think it's like 95% of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones? Why? Because they know no one's going to attack them back, and they will have free reign at doing what they want. And if these things are so safe to be gun-free, why aren't these politicians disarming their security? They never write laws that are going to stop their security from having firearms. In fact, Virginia's putting in exemptions for the politicians themselves so they don't have to follow these laws. that tells you what they think of you. It's not about safety. It's about creating chaos. Because with chaos, you need them to create more laws. With more laws comes more control and more chaos. That's all it's about. It's not about your safety. This Virginia plot also highlights the massive disconnect we've been talking about during all my shows. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. While the Supreme Court is busy reestablishing the rule of law, and the administration is busy securing our borders, our interests abroad, these state-level radicals are doubling down on the very policies that the American people just rejected. They are effectively saying that your rights are actually privileges that can be revoked at any time by a slim majority in a state house. It is a fundamental betrayal of the social contract and a direct challenge to the Second Amendment shall not be infringed command. We also have to look at the timing of this move. Why now? Because they know the clock is ticking. With a pro-2A administration in Washington and a Supreme Court that is finally reading the Constitution as it was written, the gun grabber window is closing. They are trying to ram these bans through before the legal hammer comes down and reminds them that the right of the people to keep and bear arms isn't a suggestion. It is a desperate last gasp effort to create facts on the ground before the court can step in and restore order. But what they're also doing is they're causing their own demise by putting these strict, stringent rules into effect, these bans into effect. It's forcing people to start lawsuits, to take it to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to rule on this. That's when the Supreme Court steps in and smacks these laws down as unconstitutional. If they were smart, they would not be so stringent and strict that it forces people to have to go the court route, or at least take it to the Supreme Court. Because once it reaches the Supreme Court, it becomes law of the land. The impact of these laws is always the same. They create a victim class out of the law-abiding. By making it harder and more expensive to own a firearm, they are effectively pricing the Second Amendment out of reach for the very people who need it most. The working class families in high crime areas who don't have the luxury of private security. I've talked about it before. I will keep talking about it. It was the late 80s, early 90s. The Democrats did a study on how to ban guns. The results of that was they couldn't ban guns outright. The people wouldn't take it. That they would have to make the process a little bit harder, more paperwork, more difficult, to the point where it just made people give up. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it so hard that you go, it's not worth it. It is elitism in its purest form, practiced by politicians who live in gated communities while telling you that a 10-round magazine is plenty for your defense. Ultimately, the Virginia chopping block is a reminder that the fight for our rights to party is never truly over. It's a local battle with national consequences. If they can get away with it in the birthplace of the Bill of Rights, they will try it in your backyard next. The Reaver perspective is that we don't ask for permission to be free. And we certainly don't let a group of radicalized Richmond bureaucrats tell us how to protect our lives. The Second Amendment isn't a gift from the government. It's a restraint on the government. And it's about time we start acting like it. I will never stop fighting for the Second Amendment. I will never. I've done some articles on it. I've written, shit, now I can't remember the guy's name. One of the original Supreme Court justices, one of our founding fathers. And he talked about the word militia and how it was used in the Constitution. It does not mean a military. It is used as, if you look at the word back at that time, anybody that is of age to join the military. In other words, basically, someone that's 18 or above. That's what that is talking about when it says militia. And people love to distort it and change it to their own ways and use modern definitions. Well, you can't use modern definitions on that. And don't tell me that there was no semi-automatic, no automatic, because they did have them back then. Yes, most of it was cap and ball. And you talk about military weapons. What do you think military weapons were when they wrote the Second Amendment? It was what you brought with you. Those muskets that you brought with you, those home weapons were the military weapons. Problem we have is we have people that don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the Second Amendment, and they love to shoot their mouth off without an understanding. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And before we hit the break, quick reminder, if you enjoy what we're doing here on SHR Media and Reaver of Common Sense, consider supporting the show. You can join the channel as a YouTube member by hitting that join button below the stream. Members help keep independent media alive and get some extra perks as our community grows. And if you want to jump into the conversation live, super chats are open and always welcome. Your message gets highlighted on the screen and it helps keep the show rolling. Don't go anyway. More Reaver of Common Sense coming up right after this.
Come listen to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. Live on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Rumble channel, SHR Media YouTube channel, X, Twitch, Spreaker, and wherever great conservative podcasts are found. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, guides you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Raised as a free-range child with dirt, stains, mud, and freedom, BZ broadcasts from North Idaho, comfortably surrounded by actual normal people. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room on rumble.com. Click on live chat to join. Now, with 37% more umbrage and 19% more bulbosity than previous shows, featuring delicious Liberty additives for the best in late-night conservatarian talk radio. BZ reminds you that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, fat-shamed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Hey, where do you go when you want real conversation and topics? That's right, you step to the edge. The Edge of Liberty is your home for talk radio the way it was meant to be. I'll be live every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network, and we're simulcast on KLRN Radio. We're building something different, Aaron. We just want you to be a part of it. I'll see you on the edge.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to the Reaver of Common Sense. I'm your host, Jersey Joe. I'm here to make sense out of the senseless right here on SHR Media, conservative media done right. SHR Media merch is here, and it's built for people who refuse to sit quietly while the nonsense runs wild. From bold logo tees to gear that makes a statement without saying a word. This isn't just merch, it's a signal. You stand for free speech. You stand for accountability. You stand where truth lives. Wear it, share it, live it. Grab your SHR Media merch today and represent common sense wherever you go. Head over to shrmedia.com and check out the merch store, like these mugs. All right. Looks like I had a little glitch there coming out of the break. But now, Virginia is, it seems to be, people are learning their lesson real fast about the Democrats because they just had a special election that they voted in a Republican in real fast for. They're already having buyer's remorse because everything that governor said that they weren't going to do, they're doing it exactly. So, I was not worried when the governor got elected, Democrat governor, especially Virginia. It bounces back and forth. So, but now we have the House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, decided to set the dial to maximum hysteria this week, launching a scorched earth attack on the administration's plan to deploy ICE agents to assist with security at U.S. airports. By the way, airport security, there wasn't big lines today once ICE went in there. Jeffries didn't disagree with the policy. He went for the jugular, claiming that having immigration officers assist with vetting would lead to American citizens being brutalized or even killed while trying to board a flight. It is the kind of incendiary, bottom-of-the-barrel rhetoric we've come to expect from Democrat D.C. establishment. When they lose control of the narrative, but this time, the fear-mongering hit a wall of cold, hard reality. The narrative was quickly put to the test when CNN's Dana Bash tried to grill Tom Homan on the logistics of the move. Bash, echoing the Jeffries line, questions how a plan implemented in just 24 hours could possibly be well thought out. Homan's response was a master-in-class in a common sense that effectively dismantled the entire manufactured crisis. He pointed out the glaring obvious. ICE has been stationed at airports across this country for a very long time. This isn't a radical new invasion of your travel plans. It is a strategic expansion of existing security protocols. You're talking about law enforcement now checking IDs. They're overqualified for the position. As Homan put it, it didn't take a complex year-long white paper to figure out how to guard an exit or ensure that no one is bypassing security checkpoints. These are highly trained officers, experts in identification and security, who are there to help the TSA move people through the line while ensuring that the law of this country are actually being followed. The idea that these professionals are going to suddenly pivot from vetting travelers to brutalizing them because the mission profile shifting is as insulting as it is inaccurate. The disconnect here is profound. When Jeffrey uses the words like kill and brutalize, he isn't talking to the average traveler who just wants their flight to be safe and on time. He is talking to a radical base that views any form of law enforcement as a threat. But for the rest of us, the math is simple. If you have a ticket, a legal ID, and you aren't trying to sneak through a side door, these officers are an asset and not a threat. These officers aren't going to mess with you. You got to understand, when one of those incidents happen, that's a shitload of paperwork and a shitload of explaining that they got to do that I'm positive they don't want to be doing. Think about you at work. Every time that you messed up, do you think you'd be running around doing that if massive reports and investigations would happen? This is how stupid the Democrats are and how their hyperbole is it's getting disgusting. But ultimately, this segment highlights the desperation of the left's current platform. They are effectively campaigning against a phantom version of law enforcement. By labeling a common sense security expansion as a death sentence for travelers, they are betting that the American public is too scared to see the truth. They think the American people are too dumb to see the truth. But as Homan proved, when you strip away the hyperbole, all that's left is a government finally doing its job to secure the gates of the country. The escalation of this rhetoric reveals a deeper, more cynical strategy from the House Minority Leader. By framing a simple administration shift in personnel as a life or death struggle for American travelers, Jeffries is attempting to delegitimize the very concept of interior enforcement. It is an effort to make the presence of ICE so radioactive in the public consciousness that any attempt to utilize their expertise, even in a support role, to help the TSA manage crushing lines is viewed as an act of war against the citizens. This isn't just a critique of a policy. It is an attempt to create a no-go zone for federal law at the very gates of our country, effectively demanding that enforcement be invisible or non-existent. Ultimately, this clash between Homan and protagonist and Jeffries' hyperbole serves as a perfect microcosm for the current political divide. On one side, you have a veteran lawman explaining that guarding an exit and checking IDs is a basic, necessary function of a functioning border. On the other, you have a political operative flailing and failing, suggesting that the same act will lead to the brutalization of the public. When the common sense filter is applied, the fear-mongering falls away, leaving behind a clear picture of an establishment that is terrified of a transparent, secure, and orderly system. The American public isn't asking for more hysteria. It's asking for the gates to be watched. And as Homan made clear, that is exactly what is finally happening. Let me get my glasses clean. Sorry. The rhetoric coming out of the left, it's getting over the top, and it's sickening their desperation. If you had a group that was winning, they wouldn't be acting like this. They wouldn't have a need to shut down DHS. And don't kid yourself. This is a Democrat, again, shutdown. They don't like what's going on, so they won't vote for a budget. Every Republican, except one, I think, has voted for it. And every Democrat, I think, except one, has voted against it. So if you're voting against the budget, you're voting for a shutdown. It's basic math here. It is not this master class that they try to spin it. The Democrats and even the liberal media has been labeling it a Democrat shutdown again. And for years, the asylum seeker label was the left's favorite suit of armor. Every time you pointed out the chaos at the southern border, they hid behind the humanitarian shield, claiming millions of people were fleeing deadly prosecution or political tyrants. It was a massive guilt trip designed to keep the gates open and the cameras away. But a new survey has just taken a sledgehammer to the narrative, and the results are exactly what anyone with a pulse and a bit of common sense already knew. The vast majority of these folks weren't running for their lives. They were running for a raise. The data is absolutely devastating for the open border crowd. When you actually sit these people down and look at the numbers, most of the migrants from the Biden-era surge didn't even come close to meeting the legal definition of asylum. We're talking about a massive influx of economic opportunists who used a magic word to bypass our laws. They weren't being hunted by a regime. They were looking for better jobs, better housing, and the American taxpayer checkbook. Common sense take here is that wanting a better life is human nature, but it isn't a legal right to cut the line. By allowing this asylum loophole to stay open for 4 years, the previous administration turned a serious legal protection into a global punchline. They flooded the zone with meritless claims, buried the cases of people who actually were in danger, and treated our sovereignty like a suggestion. Now that the facts are out, the moral high ground is looking more like a sinkhole. The asylum myth wasn't about compassion. It was about a total lack of enforcement masked as kindness. We spent billions of dollars on a population that essentially entered under false pretense, all while DC elite told us we were bigoted for asking for a background check. And while the talking heads in DC are busy pearl clutching over unilateralism, the rest of the world just provided a massive reality check. Over 20 nations have officially stepped up to join the U.S.-led coalition to defend the Strait of Hormuz. This isn't just a fleet of ships. Woohoo. It's a total collapse of the narrative that American first means American alone. When the chips are down and the global energy supply is on the line, the world doesn't look to a UN committee. They look for a leader who isn't afraid to draw a line in the water. Tehran has spent the last few years thinking they own the thermostat for the global economy. They've used that 21-mile wide choke point as a gun to the head of every industrialized nation, threatened to choke off the oil supply whenever they needed a seat at the table or another pallet of cash. Obama. That era is over. By assembling a wall of steel from 24 different flags, this administration has effectively neutralized Iran's primary leverage. Without firing a single shot, it's the ultimate peace through strength play, and it's working. The timing here is everything. Iran just tried to flex by unveiling surprising new missile capabilities, a move clearly intended to scare off regional players. Instead of retreating, the international community doubled down. It turns out that when the United States projects actual credible resolve, our allies don't run for the hill. They find their backbone. This coalition is proof that strength is the only language the Middle East respects. And for the first time in the decade, we're speaking it fluently. And we've been warning Europe that Iran had the capability to reach them. And they believed Iran, oh, no, we don't have that. We don't have that. Nope. They just fired a fucking ballistic missile the other day. What is it? Heading to Diego Garcia. It is the same distance from Iran to Diego Garcia, from Iran to the UK. Iran could hit the UK with their ballistic missiles. So that's what has jump-started the European Union to getting off their ass, because now they realize they are in danger. But when the warships are stacking up in the strait, there is a much quieter and potentially more dangerous game being played inside the walls of Tehran. For decades, the Ayatollah Khomeini has been the face of the Islamic Republic. But the intelligence committee is now chasing a shadow. CIA and Mossad analysts are working overtime to figure out a simple, terrifying question. Who is actually at the helm? All signs point to Khomeini, Mojtabi Khomeini, the supreme leader's son, but there's zero proof he's actually in control. We are looking at a nuclear-armed regime that might effectively be a ghost ship. This isn't just some spy novel intrigue. It's a massive security vacuum. If the supreme leader is incapacitated or dead, and the regime is hiding it, then every command coming out of Tehran right now could be coming from a panic committee of hardliners or a son who was never officially chosen. When you have a regime that lives and dies by the image of an absolute God-given authority, the moment that authority becomes a question mark, the house of cards starts to shake. The intelligence gap here is staggering. Mossad is usually 3 steps ahead inside Iran, yet they can't confirm if the guy supposedly running the country is even in the building. It suggests a level of paranoia, internal lockdown that we haven't seen in 40 years. They are terrified. If the truth comes out, that there's a vacuum at the top. The people of Iran might finally see the opening they've been waiting for to tear the whole thing down. This explains the erratic behavior we're seeing. One day they're unveiling new missiles. The next they're making delusional demands for compensation from the United States. That's not the behavior of a confident, stable government. It's the behavior of a regime that is trying to project strength to hide the fact that they don't know who's giving the orders. They're whistling past the graveyards, hoping the West doesn't realize the pilot has left the cockpit. And just when you thought the regime in Tehran couldn't get any more detached from reality, the Wall Street Journal drops a report on their latest mediation demands. While they're staring down a 20-nation naval hammer in the Straits and hunting for their own supreme ghost at home, the Islamic Revolution Guard Corps has decided to release a wish list that reads like a fan fiction novel. They aren't just asking for a ceasefire, they're demanding firm guarantees that the war won't restart, an immediate halt to Israel strikes on their Hezbollah proxies, the complete shutdown of U.S. bases in the Gulf, and the cherry on top, financial compensations for their losses. Let's be clear about what's happening here. This isn't diplomacy. It's a desperate attempt to save face while the walls are closing in. You don't get to start fires across the Middle East, fund the proxies that are currently being dismantled, and then hold out your hand for a paycheck and the U.S. military to withdraw. It's an absolute joke. They're trying to negotiate from a position of total collapse as if they're holding all the cards. But the only thing they're holding is a list of grievances that nobody is going to sign. The demand for the U.S. to pack up and leave the Gulf is the biggest tell of all. The IRGC knows that as long as their bases are operational and that 20-nation coalition is patrolling the water, their ability to bully their neighbors is gone. They want the neighborhood cleared out so they can go back to being the regional playground bully. But the American First Doctrine doesn't involve retreating to make a terrorist regime feel comfortable. It involves making that regime realize that their demands carry zero weight when they're broke and boxed in. And then there's compensation bit. Imagine the nerve to take to demand reparations from the very people you've been targeting with IED and drone strikes for years. It's the ultimate gaslighting. They spent decades burning through their own people's wealth to fund chaos abroad, and now that bill has come due, and their infrastructure is taking hits. They want the great Satan to foot the bill. It would be funny if it wasn't so dangerously delusional. Their wish list also reveals the internal panic we talked about in the last segment. This isn't the list of a confident leadership. It's the list of group that is terrified they're about to lose everything. They're throwing every impossible demand at the wall, hoping something sticks so they can tell their remaining hardliners that they stood up to the West. It's propaganda exercise disguised as peace talks, and we shouldn't spend more than 5 seconds considering it. The reality is that the IRGC is losing its grip on the narrative. They can unveil all the surprising missiles they want, but if you can't pay your soldiers or your proxies are getting hammered, a listed demand is just a piece of paper. The only firm guarantee they should be getting is that the pressure isn't going to let up until the regime stops being a global menace. Period. No compensation, no withdrawal, and certainly no apologies for defending our interests. The map has changed, and Tehran is the only one who hasn't realized it yet. While they're busy drafting lists of what they want, the rest of the world is busy ensuring they don't get it. We aren't in the business of rewarding bad behavior anymore, and the sooner the IRGC realizes that their wish list is headed straight for the shredder, the better off everyone, including the Iranian people, will be. Oh, I got right now 5 minutes left. Oh, and I missed so much. When the fog of war gets this thick, you stop listening to the talking heads at the State Department and you start listening to the guy who's been studying how empires crumble for half a century. Stanford professor Victor Davis Hanson isn't looking at the press releases. He's looking at the behavior of the players on the field. And according to VDH, the signals are all pointing in one direction. The tide hasn't just turned. It has completely washed away the Iranian regime's leverage. If you want to know who's winning, don't watch the news. Watch the bets being placed by the people who have to live in the neighborhoods. Look at Europeans. These are the people who never touch conflict until they can smell the victory parade. Early on, they were silent, hiding behind diplomatic concerns. Now, they're quietly shifting naval assets and offering logistic supports. This isn't a moral awakening. It's a cold, hard calculation. They have read the battlefield. They've seen the 20-nation coalition just talk about, and they decide which side is going to be holding the keys when the smoke clears. Then you have the Gulf petrostate, the Saudis, the Emirates, and the Qataris. These nations survive by reading the room perfectly, and right now they're screaming their allegiance through their action. They're expelling Iranian attaches and silently intercepting Iranian missiles over their own capitals. But the real mic drop is the UAE reaffirming a $1.4 trillion investment commitment to the United States right in the middle of a shooting war. You don't bet $1 trillion on the losing horse. They're all in on American victory. Even Al Jazeera, a network that usually spends 24 hours a day bashing U.S. foreign policy, has changed its tune. This is the outlet that literally hosts Hamas offices. Yet they now calling the American bombing campaign brilliant and underestimated. When the state media of a country that houses both a massive U.S. air base and the leadership of our enemies start praising our military effectiveness, the game is over. They've seen the writing on the wall, and they're making sure they're on the right side of history. And while we're talking about high-stakes global security and the little fate of the Middle East, let's pivot back to the absolute circus happening in the halls of Congress. AOC, the self-appointed champion of the working class, apparently thinks the best use of her campaign donation isn't on policy or outreach, but on a $19,000 payout to a psychiatrist famous for hallucinogenic therapy. That's right, nearly 20 grand of donor money went to magic mushrooms specialists. You really can't make this stuff up. Think about the sheer audacity for this for a second. It boggles my mind. While her constituents in the Bronx are struggling with skyrocketing rent, AOC is investing in a doctor who specializes in psychedelic assisted sessions. Is this what progressive leadership looks like now? We used to talk about campaign finance reform. Now we're apparently talking about campaign finance trips to the astral plane. It's the ultimate ivory tower move. Spending more on a single doctor therapy than many of her voters make in a half a year. The common sense question here is simple. What exactly is being treated with $19,000 of political contribution? If you're so stressed by the job that you need high-end hallucinogenic intervention, maybe the job isn't for you. But more importantly, why is the FEC allowing campaign funds to be treated like a personal wellness slush fund? It's a total slap in the face to the small dollar donors who were told their $5 and $10 checks were going to fight the power. Turns out they were just funding a very expensive trip. Let's see. Can I sneak one more in? Yes. While California is busy trying to make IDs illegal, Justice Samuel Alito just stepped up to the plate at the Supreme Court and delivered a much-needed dose of constitutional reality. And a move that has left the left in total meltdown. Alito essentially dropped the mic on the idea that Election Day is just a suggestion. For the last few cycles, we've been told we have to accept a new normal where ballots drift in for days and even weeks after the polls close. Alito's stance is a return to the actual law. The Constitution says day, not month, and the highest court in the land is finally signal that the clock actually matters. The common sense breakdown here is that a deadline isn't a deadline if you just keep moving the goalpost. And any other part of life, taxes, bills, court days, if you're late, you're out. But when it comes to the most important decision a citizen makes, the left has fought to create a gray zone. where results can be massaged long after the voters have gone home. Alto is cutting through that noise, pointing out that the integrity of the vote depends on finality. Without a hard stop, you don't have an election. You have an ongoing administrative process that is ripe for interference. This isn't voter suppression, it's voter protection. If you know deadline is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, you make sure your ballot is in. It is the same standard we've used for over a century. And the only reason to fight for late arriving ballots is if you're betting on a margin of error that can be exploited after the fact. Aldo is essentially saying that the rules shouldn't change just because one party finds them inconvenience. It's the defense of the rule of law over the rule of the mob. And that is going to... God, I had so much more. And that's where the landscape stands tonight. From the security lines at our national airport and the data-heavy reports on the asylum myth to the carrier decks in the Straits of Hormuz and the legislative chamber in Virginia, the common thread running through every story we've covered is total collapse of curated narrative. Whether it's Tom Homan dismantling the brutality scare, the exposure of multi-billion-dollar economic migration disguised as a refugee crisis, or the little ghost ship leadership currently stalling out in Tehran, the American people are watching a fundamental realignment of power and truth. The American people are paying attention more closely than ever. They're watching how election integrity dismissed as fringe, while even mainstream voices like Stephen A. Smith are stunned by the reality of no ID laws. They're watching as campaign funds are treated like magic mushrooms, wellness accounts for the elite, while local citizens struggle to put eggs on the table. They're watching as high-ranking judges like Samuel Alito finally stepping in to remind the country that Election Day isn't a month-long suggestion. The political fight we're seeing, from a 20-nation coalition in the Gulf to an internal rebellion of Democrats like John Fetterman, are not random headlines. They're results of years of institutional rot finally colliding with the real-world common sense of the American voter. But here's the good news. You're paying attention. And when the citizens start paying attention, the nonsense starts to die. That's why independent media matters. Conversations that challenge the establishment's protected icons and their failed America Last policies matter. Because the truth doesn't survive in silence. It survives when people like you are willing to look at the receipts, speak up, and stand your ground. Before we head out tonight, a couple quick reminders on where to find more of the SHR Media family. Edge of Liberty with Sackhead Shaw on Mondays and Wednesday. That's an hour from the end of the show. 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon with BZ every Tuesdays and Thursdays, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Beer and Bullstein with Lyle Armstrong Friday and Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Mission Ready Men with Big E Jackson every Tuesdays and Thursdays, noon on the East Coast, 9 a.m. on the West. And, of course, Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe, that's me, every Monday and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I want to thank everybody in the chat, everybody, whether you agreed, disagreed, like me, dislike me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you to the moderators. You keep the chat going. And if you enjoyed tonight's show, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share the stream. Every single clip helps independent media and helps us punch through the filters to bury voices, that try to bury voices like ours. If you want to support the show directly, you can become a YouTube member by hitting the join button below the stream, or you can drop a super chat. Your support helps keep the lights on here at SHR Media and keep the microphones live. And don't forget to grab your gear at shrmedia.com, because sometimes the best way to spread common sense is to wear it. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us. I'm Jersey Joe. This has been the Reaver of Common Sense. And as always, where truth lives and the nonsense dies screaming. Good night, everybody.